balanced budget multipliers. We'll start with $1,000. Okay. Starting disposable income. Okay. Now government will increase taxes. Okay. See, we will discuss what this this balanced budget multiplier is. So balanced budget multiplier shows what? How government can increase the total GDP. So government will increase the GDP by increasing what they're spending, and to like they have to spend money. For that they will increase the taxes also. So if government is increasing spending, okay, or changing the their spending levels, and also they are increasing their taxes, the GDP will also increase by the same amount by which this and this is increasing. That is balanced budget multiplier. So again I'll tell, balanced budget multiplier is nothing but if government wants to, government can increase total income or GDP. Okay, GDP or income is one and the same. So I'll write down the statement for you to understand. The balanced budget multiplier shows how a government can increase total income, that is GDP, by changing or increasing, okay, both spending and taxes. For spending, for if they want to increase their spending, they will increase taxes, and with this they want to increase the GDP. See, both are contrasting. With spending the GDP will increase, with taxes the GDP would go down, but this is happening simultaneously. So this particular decrease in this will be offset. However, we will discuss that and we'll understand that. Okay, total income GDP by changing by changing both spending and taxes by the same amount. That means they increase $100 of spending and they increase the taxes by $100. Okay, so the GDP will also increase by $100. That's it. That is what, by the same amount. Surprisingly, this change increases GDP by the same amount. By the same amount of what? As the change in spending or taxes. That means if they're increasing their spending or taxes by $100, GDP will also increase by $100. Finished. So spending increased by $100, taxes increased by $100, GDP increased by $100. Same. That is balanced budget multiplier. We'll see an example right now and prove this point. Okay. Now we'll do step-by-step calculation. Let's say the starting disposable income is $1,000. Disposable income is nothing but the income which you have earned and you can spend. Okay. So now the tax will when the tax will increase by, let's say, $100. This is disposable income, and this is the tax which is increasing by $100. Okay. Just a second. So see, marginal propensity to consume is 0.8. So previously, with $1,000 of disposable income, the person was able to spend 80% of it. That is $800. Now with increase in taxes, the disposable income will decrease by $900. Now they can spend 80% of it. That will be $720. So what did you understand? Previously they were spending $800. Now they are spending $720. Previously the disposable income was $1,000. After the increase in tax of $100, the disposable income is $900. 80% of this has been spent. And this was the previous spending. 80% of this has been spent. After increase in taxes, the disposable income has to decrease by same amount. Now they are spending how much? $720. So reduction in spending is how much? $80. This reduction in spending is by this reduction in spending is from like on whom? Public. Who will offset this reduction in spending? The government will do that. Okay. So spending has reduction in spending is this, right? Now what happens? Listen, now what happens? Now this is reduction in spending. Now the $100 tax increase. The government is increasing the taxes, right? Will reduce the disposable income by exactly $100, and the reduction in spending is $80. $80 reduction in spending. Now we'll move forward. We will see the things step by step. OK. Now, next step, what happens? So we'll take a fresh page now. So there is a reduction in spending of $80, right? $80 spending reduced. In the previous example, they were able to spend 800. Now they are spending like 720. So $80 their spending has got reduced. Now please understand. Government spending adds to GDP. Important point. See, government, now what government does is as the spending is decreasing, so spending from whom is decreasing? This is private spending, general public. When the private spending decreases, government comes into action and government starts spending. OK. So now this reduction in $80 spending, which is private spending, is offset by the government spending of $100. Did you understand? OK. Now government increases spending by $100, which directly adds to GDP. This offsets the $80 reduction in spending and creates a multiplier effect. OK. So now what happens next step? See, government spending of $100 adds to GDP. So we will see the net impact in GDP because of this. Net impact on GDP. So government spending, what it adds $100 to GDP and private spending gets reduced by $80. So $20 is the increase in GDP so far. Okay. So as we move forward, at the end, what will happen? This gains what we are seeing every point of time will add up, and one fine time it will become $100. That will equal the spending and the increase in taxes. That will equal the increase in spending and increase in taxes. So the net impact on GDP, that means your GDP will increase by the same amount which you have spent in GDP will increase by the same amount what government has spent into the economy, or the increase in taxes by the government. Okay. Now we'll move forward. See, net gain of 20, right? See, this net gain of $20 is again what? This leads to more spending. So this $20 gain, what we are seeing here, this leads to more spending. So people start spending of this also. So $16 they spent. Okay. 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 Now $16 again adds up to the GDP. So people $16 from round this, we are going forward, right? This becomes the new income. See what is happening. $20 increase in GDP. Increase in GDP is income. So with increase in income, spendings would come. So 80% is spent. Now again, this becomes income for the economy. Again, out of that 80% is spent. Now again, out of 12.8, this becomes new income. 80% is spent. Okay. And it will be it goes on. Okay. Okay. So again, 10.24, 0.8, you can calculate. 8.192. Again, 8.192, 80%. 6.5536. Again, 6.5. 5.24. Like that, you will be getting continuously, you'll be getting some figures. Understood? So it will be now it will be going on. Fine. So just add up all the figures. 20 plus 16. 12.8. 10.24. 8.192. 6.5536. 5.24. 5.24, 80% we will take. Till now we got 79.0256. Again, so like that, if you add up, we'll see. I was still here 79.056. I'll add all the figures. Final thing we can check 20 plus 16 plus 12.8 plus 10.24 plus 8.192 plus 6.5536 plus 5.24 plus 4.192 plus 3.3536 plus 2.68 plus 2.14 plus 1.71 plus 1.36 plus 1.09 plus 0.872. You go on adding, it will become 100. Okay, so that is what we wanted to prove. Now, so as we have seen here, it is going on like that. So we will just make a small note out of it and try to conclude this topic. And the textbook question is given, textbook concept. You can just follow that. If you're having any doubts, you can clarify with me. With this, you will be in a very good position to understand that one. So what happens is if you add up the total impact, okay. So this process, what we have done, will continue indefinitely with each round adding less to GDP. Okay. So because disposable income is decreasing with increase in taxes. So the total impact is the sum of all the things, like you'll get some like almost it'll become 100 only. Okay. So total GDP change, if I take a formula, is equal to initial spending into 1 by 1 minus marginal propensity to consume. Just a second. So initial spending was $100. Marginal propensity to consume was 80%. So 100 into 5, 1 by 0.8. How much is that total GDP change? Just a second. Just a second. Okay, we will not use this multiplier formula, otherwise you'll be confused. Okay, so with that we can conclude. See, finally what I have to conclude the change in GDP. See, initially $100 government wanted to, increase the spending with. Okay, the private spending was decreased by $80. Okay, multiplier effect adds back the reduced private spending over time, restoring GDP to $100. So what happens with the passage of time? The multiplier effect, okay, multiplier effect adds back the reduced spending of $20, okay, to the GDP and makes it $100. Okay, that will automatically happen. Okay. So for $1 increase in spending and $1 increase in taxes, the GDP is also increasing by $1. Okay. So this is what is the balance budget multiplier concept. Now let's move forward and see the example given in the textbook. See, first we will discuss about the fiscal multiplier. Fiscal multiplier yesterday we discussed, right? The marginal propensity to consume is 80%. Tax rate is 25%. Fiscal multiplier, what does it say? When you calculated, you got 2.5. That means for every $1 increase in government spending, okay, the aggregate demand will increase by $2.5. That is the multiplier effect. Okay. Now we'll go to the balance budget multiplier. You understand? The aggregate demand is increasing by $250 in dollar terms. Okay. So if $100 is if $100 of spending is increased by government, $250 of demand, aggregate demand will be seen in the economy. That means if $100 is spent by the government into the economy, the aggregate demand will increase by $250. Okay, that is what we found. Now let's see what these people are saying. The balance to balance the budget, the government could increase taxes by $100 to just offset a $100 increase in spending. Okay, so government has to spend $100. This $100, what government is spending, they will be, spending this by collecting taxes. So they are increasing the taxes by $100. Tax increase and spending increase. To offset this, they are doing this. Change in taxes will have a magnified effect on aggregate demand because demand will decrease. Increase in taxes will decrease disposable income and consumption expenditures. Thereby the aggregate demand will decrease in this case. Okay. So because of increase in taxes, the demand is decreasing. That again, that who will bridge that gap? The government will spend into the economy. That's what. So the initial decrease in spending from a tax increase. See, if the tax is increasing by $100, I told you disposable income is decreasing. Previously, my disposable income was 1,000. Now my disposable income will be 900. If marginal propensity to consume is 80%, previously I was spending $800. Now I'm spending only $720. So my like spending has decreased by how much? $80. So the initial decrease in spending from a tax increase is $80. Now what happens beyond that? Multiplier effect is the same as we described. For a direct increase in government spending and overall decrease in aggregate demand for $100 tax increase. See the multiplier effect. We saw that multiplier effect, right? If government spends, then how the economy will, the GDP will grow. So like the multiplier effect is the same as we described for a direct increase in government spending. If government is increasing the spending, and the overall decrease in aggregate demand, and government is increasing the taxes. So they are increasing the spending, which will increase the demand. They are increasing the taxes which is decreasing the demand. Okay, increasing, and the overall decrease in aggregate demand for a $100 tax increase is $100 into marginal propensity to consume. We saw that $80 into fiscal multiplier. Our example was this, right? So that will be $200. Okay. What is this $200? Government is increasing spending. Government is increasing taxes. With increase in spending, demand will increase. With decrease in spending, with increase in taxes, demand will decrease. With increase in government spending, demand will increase. With, I'll put it as S, with increase in taxes, demand will decrease. Okay. And the multiplier we saw, if government increases the spending, the GDP is going to grow by 2.5 times. For $1 spending by the government, the GDP is going to, or the aggregate demand is going to increase by $2.5. Okay. So, however, now what is happening, we have $100 here. Okay. And we can only spend 80% of that. Okay, so 80% of that, and the multiplier 2.5. So what we are seeing here, $200. Okay, so $200, fine. So what we will do, there our economy is going to grow by this much. Okay, and here the spending is going to be this much. So net effect is getting created by $50. Okay. So $250 is the increase the economy. We also saw the net effect in the GDP, right? That net effect in the GDP is shown here. Okay, just a second. Just a second. So when we saw the net effect in the GDP in the first example, what I have explained you, government spending was increasing by $100, and what was happening, the private spending was decreasing by $80. So the net impact was $20, right? Right. So government spending was increasing by this much. Okay, the private spending was decreasing by this much. The net impact is this much. Okay, this much adds up into the GDP. So that we discussed right now. Okay, so here also if you see, the aggregate demand will increase by $250. Why aggregate demand will increase by $250? Because of the government spending. So government spending will increase the demand by $250, or it will increase the government spending will increase $250 into the GDP. Okay, example. And what we see here, increase in government spending and overall decrease in aggregate demand for $100 tax increase. If the tax is increasing, the private spending will decrease, right? The private spending will decrease by how much? $200. Okay. So if that happens, okay, see, if that in my case it was $100, government is increasing the spending by $100 and the like private spending is decreasing by $80. In this government spending is increasing by $250 and the private spending is reduced by $200. So what it is creating a net effect of $50. We say that the balance budget multiplier is positive. Okay, that's what. So if instead of $100 increase in taxes, we increase the taxes by 125, that the increased government spending by $100, the net effect on aggregate demand would be zero. Why? See, if instead of $100 in taxes, the taxes are going to increase by $125. 125 into 0.8 into 2.5 is going to be $250. So $250 spent into the economy. Okay, $250 reduce the private spending. Okay, okay, and the net effect is zero. Fine, that's what. Ricardian equivalence is already explained to you. Ricardian equivalence says what? Like, you know, if the government's current deficit is increasing, that means government has less money to spend into the economy. That means government will borrow in the future. Okay, and that burden will be put onto the tax payers. So people start saving from today so that they understand that in the future when the taxes are going to increase, they will be, you know, levied with higher taxes and they should be in a position to pay that. That is Ricardian equivalence. Okay. So increase in current deficit today mean greater taxes in future. To maintain their preferred pattern of consumption over time, taxpayers may increase current savings. Okay, and they will reduce consumption. So what is happening? There is a deficit. Okay, that means more taxes in future. Okay, consumption will reduce. Okay, and like, you know, what will happen? What will happen? Savings will increase. So if like, you know, today there is deficit. Okay, government is not able to spend into the economy and they're going to, you know, collect that money from you in the future. Okay, the people will start decreasing the consumption and they'll start saving more. So to fulfill this, they will do this. Okay, so if taxpayer, so understand, so what is happening? To maintain their preferred pattern of consumption of time, taxpayers may increase current savings, reduce consumption. So savings will increase, consumption will decrease. To offset what? The expected cost of higher future taxes. Yes, so they will, you know, increase the savings. Okay, and reduce the consumption. Okay, so to the like, you know, it's offsetting. Okay, why they are doing this? They are increasing the savings and decreasing the consumption so that they can pay the future higher taxes. So this will offset this. So if taxpayers reduce current consumption and increase current saving by just enough to repay the principal and interest on debt the government issued to fund the increased deficit. So of course, if the government is having deficit, they'll borrow. So if they'll borrow, they'll put the burden on the people. So taxpayers will reduce consumption, increase savings so that that debt what government has taken and what government want to, you know, recover the repayments in form of higher taxes. Okay, there is no effect on aggregate demand. This is known as Ricardian equivalence. What is happening? See, if taxpayers reduce consumption and increase saving by just enough to repay. So taxpayers, let's say, has you know, has reduced the consumption. Okay, and increased savings. So they have reduced their consumption by, you know, some $100. Okay, and that much is nothing but they are saving. If they reduce their consumption by $100, that means they have saved by $100. Okay, or if they increase their savings as well, because principal and interest both have to be repaid by the government. So they have saved enough so that to repay the principal and interest on debt the government issued to fund the increased deficit. Okay, there is no effect on aggregate demand. See, this much they have saved, and by this much amount they will repay the government debts. Okay, so government, what it is doing, it is collecting from public and it is going to repay that money. But government has already spent into the economy, and economy will definitely benefit with that. So this is Ricardian equivalence after economist David Ricardo. If taxpayers underestimate their future liability for servicing and repaying the debt, so that aggregate demand is increased by equal spending and tax increases. So what they are saying, if taxpayers underestimate their future liability, but that means they understand that in future that there's no higher taxes are going to be levied on them, and for servicing and repaying the debt, so they are supposed to repay the debt right in the future. So today they underestimated, let's say, and future the taxes are going to increase because government is going to put burden on them, so that the aggregate demand is increased by equal spending and tax increases. So however, now what government will do, government will increase taxes, and government will spend that money on the economy. So Ricardian equivalence does not hold. Whether it does is an open question. That's all. So we have already done discussed about discretionary fiscal policy. This is nothing but the government can change their policies with respect to change in the changes in the economy. If they want to spend very high amounts on infrastructure or capital projects, they can frame the discretionary policy. They can change their policies by increasing taxes. Okay. So discretionary policy is nothing but government is not it's not like government is made some government has already made certain rules or certain policies and that will automatically be implemented. No, government is going to change the policies based upon the scenario. If they want to expand the economy, okay, create full employment, they'll increase taxes or else they'll decrease taxes. So already we have discussed all this. Now discretionary fiscal policy is not an exact science. First, economic forecast might be wrong at times, leading to incorrect policy decisions. Second, complications arise in practice that delay both implementation of discretionary policy and impact of policy changes in the economy. Yeah, if there's a delay in this, the impact will be slow. The lag between recessionary or inflationary conditions in the economy and the impact of the economy of fiscal policy changes can be divided into three types. So recognition lag. Discretionary policy decisions are made by a political process. So the state of economy is complex and it may take policymakers time to recognize the nature and extent of economic problems. So that will take time for them to implement the policy. Recognition lag. Action lag. Government will take time to discuss and then again voting happens and again it will take time for them to implement. Impact lag. See, if all this is lagging, then the impact will be very slow and it will be seen very later. Okay. These lags are again actually make fiscal policy counterproductive. For example, if the economy is in recession phase, fiscal stimulus may be deemed appropriate. Yes, they want to decrease taxes and give chance to the economy to boom. However, by the time the fiscal stimulus is implemented and boost, that means boost is nothing but reducing taxes. And has full impact, the economy may already be on path of recovery driven by the private sector. Additional macroeconomic issues may hinder the usefulness of fiscal policy. Misreading economic statistics. The full employment level for an economy is not precisely measurable. If government relies on expansionary policy, that means what is expansionary fiscal policy? They want to increase taxes. Okay. Just a second. So misleading economic statistics, the full employment level for an economy is not precisely measurable. If government relies on expansionary fiscal policies, if government wants to expand, if government wants to see some boom in the economy, okay, they will go for expansionary fiscal policy. What is the expansionary fiscal policy? Increasing government spending and reducing taxes. Okay, sorry, I just misquoted. Reducing taxes. If taxes are reduced, people have more disposable income. That disposable income they can spend into the economy. Okay, that will create, so more spending will create more demand into the economy, and the economy will expand. Okay. Mistakenly at a time when economy is already at full capacity. So if government relies on this mistakenly at time when the economy is already doing good, it will simply drive inflation higher. That means more very high demand will again increase the inflation. Crowding out effect we have already discussed. Expansionary policy may crowd out private investment. See what happens because of the expansionary policy. What is this crowding? What do you mean by this crowding out effect? So please try to understand this concept. See, crowding out effect occurs when increased government spending leads to reduction in private sector spending. Increased government spending leads to reduction in private sector spending. So like what happens? This happens because government's borrowing to finance its spending drives up interest rates, making borrowing more expensive for businesses and consumers. So what happens in crowding out effect? If government starts spending more into the economy, okay, that will lead the private sector to reduce their spending or reduce their investments, because what government will do is they will kind of borrow, and they will use that money to spend. And what will happen with this? The interest rates will increase as government starts borrowing more. It will increase the interest rates, and that makes borrowing more expensive for the private sector. Okay. Now supply shortages. If economy is slow due to resource constraints, that means they don't have enough resources like labor or other resources, and not due to low demand. Okay. It's not because of low demand. Expansionary fiscal policy will fail to achieve its objective and will probably lead to higher inflation. Why? See, there is supply shortage. Okay. And that supply shortage is because of the shortage of the resources. Okay. Not because of low demand. It's not like the demand is low. The manufacturers do not want to, produce and supply in the market. The manufacturers want to supply in the market, but there is less availability of labor or resources. So what will happen at that point of time if government reduces taxes? Okay, people are ready to spend, but there is less supply in the market. Okay, so what will happen? That the production will also production, there will be some kind of break in the production. Break in the sense the production will be slow. Okay, because of the supply shortages, and slowly steadily what will happen, the things will become very very costly because of the less resources, less availability of raw material or labor, and the production will be less, and at that point of time expansionary policy will be of no use. See, for example, if 100 boxes a factory can make, okay, and they supply 100 boxes, people will buy 100 boxes, right? If a factory which is having a capacity of 100 boxes only can supply 10 boxes into the market, okay, so there are people who are queuing to buy 100 boxes, but they're getting only 10 boxes, which makes the 10 boxes very very costly. And during that point of time, if the taxes are reduced, yeah, taxes are reduced, people are having more disposable income, but there is very less number of number of units available for them to purchase. Okay, so what is the use of reducing the taxes or going for expansionary policy when there is supply shortage? If there is very high supply, then that looks good because people can buy more, because people will have more disposable income. People will have more disposable income and there's very high availability of goods in the market, but the goods are very less and the people have more money, of no use. Limits to deficits. There is limit to expansionary policy. If the markets perceive that deficit is already too high as a proportion of GDP, that means government has less money, funding deficit will be problematic. This could lead to higher interest rates and actually make the situation worse because they have to again borrow. Multiple targets. See, government will have a lot of targets to achieve. Okay, if the economy is high, has high unemployment coupled with high inflation, fiscal policy cannot address both problems simultaneously, because fiscal problem, see what will happen if the inflation is very high. What government can do is government can increase taxes, okay, and reduce the spendings by the citizens. Okay, if the spending is reduced by the citizens, the demand will come down and the inflation can be controlled. But how will they control the high unemployment? For high unemployment, what they have to do? See, let's say there is a fiscal policy of the government. So if government wants to increase the employment process, they have to spend more. For spending more, they have to increase the taxes. If they increase the taxes, they have to spend more. If they spend more, people will start working. Okay. If they increase the taxes, that will reduce the disposable income of the citizens. Okay. If it reduces the disposable income of citizens, okay, they will not purchase more. That can control the inflation, but there is no guarantee that government spending can also achieve the high unemployment. That means can reduce the high unemployment problem. Okay. See, increasing taxes can reduce the spendings, but if taxes are increased and that will be utilized for spending into the economy. Okay, we understand that everything right now the economy is inflated. So that money, if they spend into the economy also, there is no guarantee that unemployment problem can be reduced. Why? Because unemployment problem is because of so many reasons. Okay, uh, uh, if the economy is not well performing, or there is lack of skills available for a particular job, so all those problems are there. So not always with fiscal policy they can solve all the problems. So this part is nothing but the summary part, whatever we have seen. To determine if fiscal policy is expansionary or contractionary, economists often focus on changes in budget, surplus or deficit. An increase in surplus is indicative of contractionary. Okay, an increase in surplus. That means what is increase in surplus? See, I already told you expansionary policy is nothing but reduction in taxes. Okay. So if there is decrease in taxes, government will get less money. Okay. But the disposable income with the people will be more and they can spend more. So that is expansionary policy. Okay. And if the taxes are increased, okay, if the taxes are increased, that will definitely increase the surplus. Okay. But what will happen? That will, see, I will tell. Expansionary policy, contractionary policy. If the taxes are reduced, people have more disposable income. When taxes are reduced, people have more disposable income. They can spend more. Okay. An increase in surplus is indicative of contractionary. Decrease in surplus is expansionary. Okay. So less taxes. If the government is reducing taxes, more disposable income. And if the taxes is decreased and more disposable income, they spend more. That will lead the economy to expand. Okay. And if the taxes are more, that means government will get surplus from this. That will reduce the disposable income. Okay, spendings will decrease. Okay, and that is contractionary. So there we are. Where is that? Yeah. So an increase, okay, in surplus is contractionary. Why the surplus will increase? The taxes will increase, okay, and decrease in surplus. Okay, the taxes will decrease, but that will expand the economy because people will have more disposable income and they can spend that into the economy. So that will expand. Okay, increase in or similarly an increase in deficit. Increase in deficit is why less taxes. Okay, and that is expansionary, and decrease in deficit, more taxes, contractionary. Okay, that's what. So I'll write something typical about expansionary policy and contractionary policy. Expansionary policy, reduction in taxes, increase in government spending. Okay, and reduction in taxes, more disposable income. Okay, and that leads to what? Deficit. Just a second. Okay, so reduction in taxes, government is getting less taxes, that creates deficit. Contractionary policy, hike in taxes. Okay, reduced government spending, and that leads to surplus. Okay, so if more taxes collected leads to surplus. Make a note of this. Generally, contractionary policy to control inflation. I will write that point also. Contractionary policy is to control inflation. During inflation, people should not buy more goods. So they increase taxes so that people try to save more. Okay. Increase in taxes, less disposable income, that will deter excessive buying. So that will control inflation. And this is during the recessionary times, expansionary policy. Recession. Okay. So that is the end of this chapter. We will go for next topic in the tomorrow's session. Thank you.